Hell yeah. Fucking skunks, dude? Hell no. Scratching your
All right.
eye? But it's
Yeah, put my phone aside. Well, dude, yeah. So Grace and I met. She was a security guard at Enterprise when I was driving the bus there.
Really?
Yeah. And I was just like, man, you're so funny. Like I started doing stand up when I was there, and she's like, oh man, I could never do that. I'm like, Grace, you're too funny. You're the funniest woman I ever met. You know what I mean? Like you gotta do it. But she never did. But we talked about it. I was like, look, I'm gonna start a podcast one day, and that'll be the easiest route for you to get your material out there, your image out there, whatever, brand, whatever. And so yeah, that's what we're trying to do. But
That's awesome. No, she's really funny. You're both really funny. It's good.
She's hilarious.
Yeah.
She's fucking hilarious.
I got a lot of friends like that where I meet them and I'm just like, dude, you're so naturally funny.
Yeah.
If I filmed you all day,
Right,
it'd
yeah.
be quality. You know what I mean?
Can I manage your career for you? You know what I mean? Like
Don't let me. I'm here for you now.
some people are so funny. That's how she was, and she lives very far away from here. So like on the weekends, I have to drive, pick her up, bring her up here. So, it is what it is. But like, it's a blast, man. We've been having a blast, dude. It's so funny that we ran into each other at Universal because that was kind of like the last time we hung out. I think we rode a couple times after that, maybe.
Yeah.
But that was right when I had started at Equinox, and I was training there.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like broke as a joke, and you paid for my ticket to Universal.
Did I?
Dude, I almost started crying when I saw you, you and your girl, because I was with Courtney and my sister.
Uh-huh.
And my sister came out for Halloween, and we were able to pay for tickets to Horror Nights. And those fuckers are expensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, the last time I was here, Kit paid for my ticket because I was so down. Like, I couldn't afford it. And then I paid you back. I paid you back.
Uh-huh.
But you're like, hey, man, I'll spot you. Just pay me back. And I
Okay.
did. It took me like a few weeks. I had to wait for a couple checks. Like, I was in dire straits.
Shit.
And then I pass you, and I'm like, damn, a lot has changed.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments, like you're like, damn it. You forget like where sometimes you're so hard on yourself. You're like, fuck, man. Like, oh yeah, I was homeless.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was,
Yeah.
But that was a cool moment seeing you, dude.
That's fun, man. I just don't even remember that myself, but obviously that had.
You saw me and you're like, who's that guy again?
What's his name? Have I met him before? Yeah. I'm actually like that with some people because I travel so much and I see so many different people. There's people that I dated for 6 months and I'm like, do I know who that is? Like, I wouldn't even know.
Josh? What? Oh, yeah.
I remember him. Don't worry.
You're Tanya now. Got it.
But yeah, there's a lot that like I forget, and even times like I lived on my mum's couch for a while, I lived on my buddy's couch for a while, I lived with another buddy for a while. There's a lot of times where I wasn't homeless, but I didn't have my own home. I would be like crashing at friends' places for a long time, and I you just remind me of that. Then we're living with different families. One Filipino family that were full of dancers trying to teach me how to dance.
Nice.
Didn't happen.
Join the family business.
Hey, come on, kid, dance. And I'm like, doing the robot.
It's the only move I got.
But there's a lot, like for me, there was a lot of times like that where I almost forget. I have a good habit of only remembering the good times. So a lot of time, and
That's a talent, I feel like.
I think I'm lucky because I've had anxiety most of my life as well, and I seem to just forget that most of my life I was sitting there in a full blown panic attack. But I remember the good parts of what I was doing and stuff. But yeah, if I sat there long enough, I would get to things I'm like, fuck. Sometimes I walk past areas, I'm like, I used to sleep on the ground in that house over there because this guy owned it and this. And now...
Was that back in Australia?
Yeah, some back in Australia. Some when I moved over here. When me and my brother first came over here. And
Is he out here now?
No, not
Okay.
at the moment. He probably will come out here because
Yeah.
he's doing a lot of movies and directing, but he just hasn't made that move yet. And we came out here and we got a house to stay in. Not wasn't a house; it was like a little apartment in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like right near the Strip.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's off Hollywood. This is gonna be great.
You smell shit and piss all day.
We got there and we're just like, what the? Like we were so depressed. We just wanted to go home.
Yeah.
And as I was trying to find this area, I couldn't even find where we were staying. So I lost whatever money we put down on that. I lost. And a friend of mine called me, Waldemiro Perez Jr., one of the funniest dudes in the world, bro. Barely understand a word he's saying, though. But he's like an 8th degree black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
He's just fun. I like him. And he's like, yeah, man, come stay at my house. I was like, oh, really? And like, so me and Scott, crashed at his house for like ages. I was sleeping on the floor in there and
wow.
stuff. It was good. But there was a lot of times back in Australia, especially when I was doing jiu-jitsu and I wasn't making a lot of money, and it was a long way to try and get from where I was living with my mum into training. It was like a 2-hour drive. So I'd stay with another buddy that, I had a lot of friends that looked after me a lot and just, crash in my house, for free, just chill. And that's why I'm always the same. Like if, a friend of mine or anyone's like, hey, like I had a guy that come from Australia. He's like, hey bro, I broke up with my wife. I was about to get married, and he stayed with me for like 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just fine. Get your feet,
Yeah.
I think it's, it's fun for me as well. He actually started doing my marketing, which was great as well. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah, it was a blessing in disguise, because at that point I'd given up on selling products for jiu-jitsu because there was something wrong with my Facebook. I just went from like making good money to making nothing.
Yeah, I remember when we used to talk about it. It was amazing.
Yeah, and then like he came across, and then he just checked something. He opened a ticket with Facebook, and they got back to me and said, oh, there was a widget that was out or something.
Wow.
And then suddenly literally went from nothing to $1,000 a day. I was like, what the
How
hell?
long of a time span were you like not making anything?
About 2 years.
Shut the fuck up.
For real.
Oh man, dude.
This has happened to me a few times.
What years were those?
That was 2000. So 2019, I started making money again. So 2017,
Okay.
I pretty much made nothing for 2 years.
Yeah.
But before that, I made a fair bit of money from my earlier products, and I did a lot of seminars as well. Like I think I did 36 seminars in 2 months all over the world. So that helped. But 2017, 2019, I just had no ads running. I just felt like I thought in my head, maybe people just don't want to buy my products.
17 to 19.
Yeah.
Dang.
And that's when I came to America, trying to move to America as well. Trying to get things done. I did have a movie before that in 2015 that I got a bit of money for. And
With your brother?
Yeah. No, not with him. This was just a separate one that I got a lead role, and I was very lucky. It was like my second role in a proper movie.
Yeah.
Big budget movie. And I used that money to fix my knee, and I knew in my head, I was like, I want to go to America. I want to become an actor. I love acting, but I know that's going to take 5 to 10 years probably. Great if it happens before that. But like, if I was going to work really hard, that's probably where it's going to happen, 10-year mark.
Right.
And I thought, well, I need to be able to make money beforehand. So I thought I'll fix my knee, try and do some seminars. So I did a lot of seminars, and then I built up a little bit of money, came here and just sort of bled through the money. And then 2019, he came and stayed with me. And then he fixed my ads, and we had a really good year. I think we made about $400,000 that year, but we spent like 50% of it on ads, which was, you don't kind of realize, so it's like $200,000 that year, which was good, but it was only in a couple months. And then it sort of trickled off, and he left. He was suffering some mental illnesses, and he went back, and he was also getting sued for something else as well, which didn't help. So he took off, and then I just had I tried to get a few different people on, and people would introduce me to like, oh, this guy's good, and no one could get anything to work. And then I got my new guy Jordan on, who's really, really good. And I think he was working for Keenan Cornelius and getting his gym up. And Jay Flow as well, a really good judo wrestler guy.
Right, yeah, I follow him.
Yeah, and so he was I believe he's doing the marketing for both them. So my buddy Sebastian Broche that runs yoga for BJJ put me in touch with him, and he took over and started doing quite well. But he said to me, he's like, Kit, I think you need a new product. We've sold, I think, nearly 4,000 copies of the last product I'd done, and I just hadn't really brought out a new one. And then there was an idea that I'd played with, and it was the way I was teaching was more through games instead of techniques. And I thought, I don't know how people are going to receive this online if I brought out a game that's the program that's based on games to help people develop. So I brought it out, and I was kind of putting it off, and I finally brought it out, and it's been kicking ass. And
really?
So in the last 2 months, we've sold about 1,000 copies now.
That's awesome.
And for $120 each, and the ROI, the return of investment, has been insane. Like we had at some points like 10 times what we were getting back 10 times what we're putting in. and it averages around 4 ROI. So, and it's been quite consistent. So that's
Dang, dude.
it's doing really well. And I think it's just very lucky, good timing. A lot of people are ready to accept a new way of training now, and there's a lot of evidence, and there's a lot of other coaches out there doing a really good job promoting that and getting good success. So now it's like back at the stage where a year ago I had to sell my truck because I had like no cash flow.
Dang.
I had to sell the truck, and I love that truck.
Yeah.
And then and now I'm here like, okay, now I need to buy a truck because otherwise I'm going to pay a lot in tax.
Yeah.
But it's good. But it's kind of like another reason why I kind of make a bit of money and then just drop off. I just don't care that much about money.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. I do love money.
For sure.
Everyone loves money because it helps with what you can do.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's... What the fuck?
That was an alarm.
Let's cut kid off at this time.
But anyways, you love money.
I love, yeah. But for me, it's more about like how I'm making it that's really important.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to make money in jiu-jitsu anymore. I love coaching. I love teaching. I just wish I could just do it when I want to do it and not as a career choice.
Yeah.
Because it becomes something different a lot of time. You feel like, okay, well, I'm trying to do things to make money instead of just doing things because I love doing them, which I prefer. And I don't really cross that line very much, but that's a reason why I'll kind of make a bit of money and then I'll kind of like drop off. But my big goal is with the filmmaking and stuff like that. So, 2 years ago, I made a shift where during pandemic, I was just playing games online. I was loving it too. Like,
You were trying to build your kind of gaming
I was on
following.
Twitch and stuff, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like it was actually, pandemic was fun for me because I was literally streaming 10 to 14 hours, and it was a really good time because most people weren't doing anything. So the viewership in on Twitch back then was a lot higher than what it is now because now people are back at work and stuff. But mind you, it's still a huge platform and it's good for making money.
Oh yeah.
But I kind of thought to myself, I'm like, look, what I really want to do in the long run, I don't want to be playing games forever. I do like playing games, but I don't want to just have to be playing games 10 to 14 hours a day. Plus, I don't know how healthy that is. I don't know if it's bad, to be honest with you, but it's like the games I was playing were pretty full on. I'm playing like battle royale shooters most of the time, so I'm sitting there with my glasses on and I'm playing keyboard and mouse, so I'm going crazy. But I thought, I really want to be making movies, and that's what I love. And it wasn't so much that I always wanted to make movies. I wanted to act in movies because I love acting in movies. But after 2021, there was a shift in the film industry and almost every single big industry. And my auditions went from having like 5 to 6 auditions to maybe one a month. And now it's like one every 3 months if I'm lucky. And half the time they're the worst auditions I'd ever want to do. Yeah. So I made a decision. I'm like, look, if I really want to make this, I'm going to have to try and make movies myself.
Make your own shit.
I'm going to have to do it myself and just build my way up. And I thought to myself, well, look, what's writing? Okay, I don't know how to write because I literally can't. I'll show you my first script. It's literally everything is uppercase letters.
That's one of my scripts I'm working on.
Ah, sick,
yeah,
sick.
brother.
Hell yeah, bro. So my first one.
That's just my dog yapping, so keep talking.
Oh, I didn't even hear it, to be honest with you. Come in. The first script I wrote was all uppercase lettering because I didn't know what was meant to be upper and lowercase.
Yeah.
I had not one comma in it. My periods were all exclamation marks because I was writing how I text.
Okay.
My mum's family fled the war.
Yeah, you blame your mom. I get it.
She should have stayed in. They were Italian, fled the war back then, so they didn't have they weren't really educated in English very well. My grandparents didn't even speak English, and my mum is half and half. She doesn't speak English or Italian. I don't know what she's saying half the time.
Got it.
My dad come from a rough family, and although he did really well in terms of work wise, he wasn't a super educated kid.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have. And I never read a book or anything like that. So for me, getting into writing was terrible. I did read a couple of self-help books, but to be honest, it was more I listened to a couple of self-help books and read. I read one novel ever, and it was Stephen King's It.
Okay.
And I read that twice.
That's scary as shit.
Yeah, bro, that's good. And I read that twice. I love that movie. Love that book. So I decided, well, what is writing? It's telling a story. Okay, I've watched enough movies. I used to go to Blockbuster and Video Easy we had in Australia every week, and I'd buy 10 movies, and I'd rent 10 movies, and I'd watch them all week, and then just get another 10. Now, that's all I love doing. So the storyline and the format was just ingrained into my memory. So for me, I could come up with an idea quite easily because I'm kind of a creative individual and I got ADHD, so my mind's always going on. I just didn't know how to write the damn thing, but I knew the format of it. I knew what beats roughly I had to hit because I I've got so much subconscious, influence.
Yeah, you're like, oh, this scene ended like that in that one movie. That's how I need to end this scene. Yeah,
Exactly. But I just didn't know how to write it. So I just started writing and then sent it to people. And people were like, bro, this is fucking terrible. Okay. But it wasn't, they're like, this is actually
Great idea.
story, but you've written it unbelievably bad. But I like what you're trying to do here. I can see what you're trying to do.
Nice.
And then it was just like, I just kept working like that. And then I was so lucky. I got introduced to this guy. And I'm like the worst networker in the world. I just don't like it. I like everything to be organic. You know? And like, I hate thinking like, oh, I'm going to go here because there's people here and I want to talk to. I just like being myself, attracting the people that, like me for who I am. I'm not everyone's person. And neither is anyone else.
Right.
But I don't want to have to pretend I'm not to someone else to get somewhere. So a friend of mine, Rob, his name is, you might have met him back in there. He did a bit of jiu-jitsu for like 10 years. And he's like, kid, I got this guy I want you to meet. And he wants to learn jiu-jitsu. For some reason, I don't know why. That day I was like, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? And I would never do that. I don't even know why I did. I still can't remember. But for some reason, I was like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. I go meet this guy. Sheldon Turner, his name is. He's a Golden Globe winner. He's an Oscar-nominated writer. He wrote X-Men First Class, Up in the Air, Ambulance. He rewrote The New Roadhouse, The Longest Yard.
Awesome.
All good movies. Really, it's a phenomenal writer. One of the best in the world.
Yeah.
I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know who he was. And we're talking and stuff. And then he's at the end of it, he says to me like, "Oh, I'd love you to teach me 3 days a week." And I'm thinking, you're out of your goddamn mind, bro.
I'm streaming. All right.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, listen, I'll just let me know and I'll get my number off Rob and we'll talk, right? And I leave with Rob, and Rob's like, he's a really good writer. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, you see those posters on the wall? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, he wrote those movies.
I thought he was just a fan.
What? Yeah, I'm like,
like
what?
me.
For real? Damn. And
that's cool.
And so I told him, I just said, look, I'm not interested in teaching for money right now, but if you want to do a trade-off,
absolutely.
I'll mentor you in jiu-jitsu and you mentor me in writing. He's like, let's go. And it's been the best thing that's ever happened. Not only is he one of my best friends, and we get along well, very similar, but we work with each other all the time. Like 5 times a week, I'm working with him on jiu-jitsu minimum. We Zoom every day, talk like flat out. Look, here's a message. There he is, Sheldon Turner, right there.
Oh, that's funny.
You're not going to read what it is.
Nah, please don't.
Nice. It's mean stuff. But he's one of my best friends, and he's become like when he first started coaching me in writing, he was an unbelievable writer, but he had never coached anyone. So he was still good,
right?
But his coaching is so much better now. Like he knows, and his jiu-jitsu is getting really good too.
And you get better at whatever you do that you're coaching. You know that as a jiu-jitsu coach.
Yeah.
You get better at jiu-jitsu by telling somebody how to get better at jiu-jitsu, and you're like, what the fuck? This is the last step?
It's funny because you kind of like, you naturally develop.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time you don't know why you're good. And when you coach, and if you want to do it honestly, you have to sit there and think, okay, why am I good at what I'm doing?
Right.
And sometimes that takes a lot of thought to get to it.
Yeah.
And most people miss the mark. Most coaches think they're good for some reason. They're not.
Yeah.
And they go, here, this is what I'm good. This is what I'm doing. And it just doesn't work like that. If I said to you, hey, how do I start a podcast? You can't just sit there and go, okay, these 5 steps, do it exactly like I did it and you'll get good. That's like, there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of timing to do with it. There's a lot of perseverance in times where you're like, I'm sure there's times where I don't know why I'm doing this. I should just stop it. And then you just keep going and keep going. You make mistakes and you get to a point where you are. And it could have gone any which direction. It could have gone better or worse, any little choice. And you really have to sort of understand that it's a process of trial and error when you're learning things. So what I do with him is I try and run him through a lot of games, and I try not to helicopter parent him. There's a lot of times where I want to say, do this, and I see things, but it's like, let him figure it out himself. And he does. And he finds this, and it means so much more to him when he figures these things out, because he's becoming a problem solver and he's being able to take control of his own, destiny in a sense. And we do the same thing with writing. I hit the ground running. He'll tell me the same thing. Just try it, just write it, just do it. And then come back, and if it's too much, I'll pull you back in, or if it's wrong, I'll tell you. So I kind of like, it's good because it's not like if I was going to a class, they'd say, this is what you do. No, it's different. Right. What I'm doing is I'm going out there, I'm trying things, and I'm showing him and going, what do you think?
Yeah.
And he's either, that's great, or that's not great. This is why.
Yeah.
And then I just keep, and it's just so much better. So I was really lucky with that. And it's been about 2 years now of writing. And when I say writing, I mean writing 10 to 14 hours every day. I'm up there writing. Like, that's all I do. I do have something else playing because I would drive myself mad if I was just sitting there looking at my script.
And I do stream my writing.
Exactly. If you want to come watch me like this, and then zip,
Yeah.
that cuts out. But I've usually got like Twitch or YouTube or something that I can watch that doesn't take a lot of attention.
Yeah.
So I'll be sitting there thinking about, because as you know, most of writing is
Sitting down, man.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, okay.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
20 minutes later.
So exactly. Yes. So if you compacted all that and saw what you were doing into actual writing, it would seem small.
Yeah.
But the amount of thought that you have to put into it.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about writing is it's a creative problem solving game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to come up with some idea and try and make a fresh spin on it. So many things have already happened, and then you've got to try and figure out how to get it from one end to the other and how to get it better and better. And I feel like that's very similar to jiu-jitsu. I know where I am, I know where I want to be,
Yeah.
and I've got to try and creatively figure out how I can get there in more and more efficient ways,
Yeah.
which is fun.
Well, you know what's funny? I have a similar experience as well with someone I train. And I think you might notice this, but when you're teaching someone something and they're like hearing your way of explaining it, and then when they teach you, there's kind of like an absorption of how you teach them in how they teach you. And you're like, and then you guys start like learning from each other on how to teach each other better, which is interesting.
Yeah. We've had that conversation a few times, and because I spent a lot more time coaching before he ever did, because he was,
Right.
and he told me, he's like, look, Kit, if I had have gone to coach you, if I had gone to coach you, he's so cute. If I had gone to coach you and I felt like you didn't have a lot of potential, I'd be honest with you and I'd say, look, it's not really worth it. He goes, but I saw a lot of potential in what you were writing, because I sent him something that I'd written, which is really good. But the thing is, because I was coaching a lot, he took a lot of the way I coach him in the way he coaches me now, and it's improved both, because I can see it as well when I'm learning from him. His advice is so much more concise, and so much easier for me to absorb rather than what it was a long time ago. You know, when we first started, it could be a little bit harder to understand.
Right.
His writing is still absolutely atrocious,
But he's probably
it's
never
better.
taught anybody.
When I say writing, I mean his
Hey, down.
handwriting.
Hey, get out of here.
Cutie.
Out.
Oh, that's awesome. His handwriting, I should say, not his actual writing. His handwriting is terrible. I don't know where he learnt. You know, you got a pen license. He didn't get it, because he'd write something, and I've got to screenshot every single thing. I got to take a photo of my phone and go, "What the hell is this?"
Ask ChatGPT. What is this?
ChatGPT, what is he saying here?
Yeah.
What, is this kanji or is it English?
That's funny.
But yeah, as you said, it's so much better on both ends now.
Yeah, I had something like that happen with me with a client of mine, but so all right, so something that you so thinking about writing, so like what was a scene that you wrote, if you can remember, like that was like shit, and then you turned it?
A lot of honestly, most of my scenes are shit, and I turn it. I kind of like, I don't really put much pressure on myself to write a first draft of something.
Yeah.
I kind of know what I want, and a lot of time it's just very obvious stuff that I'm writing, because I just know what it needs to be, and it's usually I come back constantly to it and then go, okay, look at this scene and go, okay, how can I make this better? How can I make it better? And then I come to the point where I'm like, okay, how can I make this in a way that nobody else can make it? And I don't mean that from an egotistical stance. I just mean
For sure.
my own voice.
Yeah.
How can I write it?
Right.
Whether better or
From my
or worse,
experiences.
but from me. Yeah. Most of my scenes have that. To think of one that I've written, there was one recently, actually. I'm trying to think what it was. Actually, there was a scene I wrote in this new script that I'm working on. I'm on a first draft of and specifically working on the first act. There was a scene where this kid has an asthma attack, and it came about page 27 in the script, which is too late. I needed to have it straight away, and I decided to have it at the first moment of the scene of the movie. I wanted to open with this kid having an asthma attack, and I opened it where it's pitch black. And then suddenly you hear the sound of young lungs, labored breathing. Yeah. So that seems to get worse and worse. And then you hear a Bob, are you okay? And then you hear fucking, what do you call it?
Match.
A match strike, and then a match strike again, and finally we see light, and we see this little kid on pajamas sitting in the bed, and he's struggling to breathe. He's got asthma, so he's like, "Are you okay?" And then it cuts to them the kid running to the parents' room, calling both parents. They come in, and the parent is the lead of the film. And the confusing part about that is you're introducing 4 characters at once really quickly. It's very hard to say who am I, who's the lead in this movie? Who am I following here? So then what I did is I changed.
The scene has to end with him. With that lead.
Either end with it or start with it. And it's kind of hard in that situation because they're all ending together. So what I did is I wrote a different scene to start off with where he's looking at a grave and he's just sitting there looking at a grave and doing something. And he looks up to the sky, it's nighttime, and he sees a satellite. And then he quickly gets out a book and he starts writing something down. And then as he's writing something down, then we hear a sound advance on the labored breathing. So then we start hearing that even though we're still seeing him. Yeah. And then it cuts to the exact same scene, the striking, seeing the kid, and then they call him in. But by that point, you know that Cole is the lead of the film because we started with him. So little things like that made that scene much better. And it's not the best example, but it's one that I just literally worked on 2 days ago or yesterday, I think it was.
Nice.
And it just makes it so much better. But there was one scene where in a script I've got called Arachius right now, where I introduce a lot of characters and it wasn't really fun. And then I try to think, what's a better way of doing this? So originally what I had him in the street and the lead's running down the street and then these gangsters kind of stop him and you get a little bit of an altercation. Then suddenly he's not alone. He's got his 5 mercenary friends that were ex-military with him and they're all badasses. And I thought I like that. Cool. But it didn't really... It kind of come out of nowhere and it wasn't really strong. So what I thought is, let's pre-shadow this a little bit more. I'm going to have a reason for these guys to come after him. So I added them in the front of the story. And then it happens in a bar this time where he goes to a bar and he's sitting there and he's eating and then suddenly the guy comes behind him and he's like, you fucking gringo, now he's big gangster uncles with him now. This is the guy that hit me and stuff. So there's like 5 gangsters, around this one guy and they get him, they give him a punch and that, trying to break him down a little bit. And then suddenly you hear this guy walk to the bar and he stands next to him. And I can't exactly remember the dialogue. I could look it up pretty quickly. But, he comes in, he says something, silly. He's like, hey, you guys know where the local rub and tug is? Something like that. And they're kind of like, and just sort of like, looking at him like everyone else scattered. Right. Like no one else wants to be in there. They know who these guys are. And this like one big ass dude comes and goes to the bar and says that. And then suddenly they're sitting there and they're like, who the fuck is this? And he turns his attention to them and they're having a fun dialogue and stuff. And the guy's like, eventually he puts a gun at him. He's like, shut the fuck up or we'll kill you as well. And then, and the guy's laughing. He's like, why are you laughing? He's like, there's a 5 versus you. And he's just like, well, it's not exactly true. And then it cuts to the other guy. You see like this badass girl. She's like Luna, her name is. She's got an eye patch and she's sitting there with a samurai sword against the door, like blocking the door. And then it goes to this other guy, Hammer, that you see his like face illuminated with the inhale of a cigar. And it just like his face looks like weathered like the pyramids. And he's a big muscular guy. And on his lap, he's got this big ass shotgun. And then it cuts to these other 2 Mexican brothers with like golden pistols, and then someone else, and it's just a really fun way to change that dynamic of the scene, and it's very much like an 80s style action, but with characters that have a lot more depth because everyone has their story, which I get to. But after I wrote that, I loved it. It's like
you're like, okay, now I'm in my story.
Hey,
now I'm in my story.
Yes,
like you feel like you're there.
Exactly.
Nice.
And that was, it was a scene I could have lost because it would have made this, the first act finish a little quicker, which I always try and do. But everyone I've sent that to, their favorite scene has been that scene. Like, no, we love this scene because it introduces them, and it's just a really fun way because you just hate these other guys and you hate that they're beating up the main guy, and then suddenly all these other badass dudes come in. And so that was like one scene that I rewrote. And I'm really happy with. Out of that whole movie, that's probably my favorite scene.
Nice.
It's actually probably one of my favorite scenes in all of my scripts
that you've ever written.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Thank you.
I like hearing stuff like that. I was writing something the other day, and I'm writing this story that really happened, which I've never done before. And it was one of my when I was younger, my high school wrestling coach was a child molester. Yeah. And it was covered up.
What's his name?
He's in prison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mindful as well. You know.
And he finally went to prison, but 10 years after, my parents tried to get him fired for some accusations that came out. And so I'm trying to
Hold on, he was in prison by the time they got him.
No.
Oh, this was before that.
In 2000, my parents tried to go forth to the school board and try to get,
Before he went to jail.
Yeah, before. And they swept it under the rug. Nothing ever happened to the guy. He kept coaching there for 8 more years or 11 more years, something like that. Yeah, about 9 years. And then 10 or 11 years, I think almost 10 years to the day or to the month, like that my parents tried to get him fired and with all these accusations, he was finally put in prison. But only because somebody came forward. One of the wrestlers came forward. And that's what we didn't have back in 2000 when me and my brother were in high school. And we didn't even know that he had molested.
Pedophile, you mean?
Yeah, we didn't know. Yeah, that he molested some of the boys on the team. We only knew things like sexually provocative things that he would do, like make the guys like put a blindfold on and like take them out somewhere, like initiate the freshmen and like, open your mouth, you're gonna suck this, whatever it is, and they put it in their mouth. It was like a hot dog, but like to show if you're willing to be one of us.
Yeah.
Hazing. Good old hazing back in the day.
Jesus Christ.
So anyways, all this shit was going on. And so anyways, I'm trying to write this story and the process of how it went down. Because my parents were the only ones who tried to do anything about it. All the other parents on the team actually fought against us because they cared so much about their kid wrestling for this guy. Because this guy made state champions. And that's what they wanted for their kids. And everybody, all the parents wanted their kids to become a state champion so you can get that scholarship, go to college, pay for your education so you can have a career, right? That was the trajectory for me and my brother since we were 5. And a lot of kids, in every sport, but in this town, small town, about like 1,500 people, that's what it was. So anyways, they swept it under the rug. The problem was my principal, who was also my pastor, was the one that swept it under the rug. So anyway, there's a lot of shit going on, but I was writing this story. I'm writing this scene between like my brother has quit the team and my dad's character, Donnie, he's trying to figure out how he can get his sons to wrestle again so that they can, finally get that state championship, get that scholarship, blah, 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 continue the trajectory. And he's just kind of at his wit's end, and he's talking to his brother. And my dad and my brother inherited a dry cleaning business from their dad. And but when they were young, they were really poor, like living in a shack out in the woods. And then he started the business. But he kind of had this. I was like, what is this? What is my dad really trying to do here? With us. And I remembered, and I have my dad like pressing clothes. At the dry cleaners, talking to my uncle and talking about, like, I don't know what to do. My son doesn't want to wrestle anymore. Like, this is what I've been trying to help him do his whole life. We've been on wrestling terms, whatever. And then he presses this little girl's dress and he picks it up. And I remember my dad telling me when I was younger, like they were so poor when they went to church, they had to wear dresses when they were kids because his dad couldn't afford pants and a shirt. So they were in dresses until maybe 4, something like that. And I was like, man, that sticks with you. If you're a tough guy, and you can't let somebody know you wore a skirt when you were, And so he kind of turns to his brother and he's like, you remember when we wore these? Like, I can't have my kids poor like us. And I was like, that's it. That's that real deep thing that like he's still scarred from, that he's just trying to, over the top in many ways. My father did too much, pushed us too hard, but that's where it was coming from. The little boy, that damaged little boy. Talk about just crying for about 20 minutes. But yeah, that was one of those recently I had. I was like, damn, man. And it's like, and you know, when you're writing something, it's very cathartic because like in all your characters, a bit of you.
Yeah, there's
You know what I mean?
truth. A lot of them is different stories that I've heard. I recently wrote a line in something that it didn't end up making into the final script, but and it was something that I remember happening to my dad when my dad's dad died. It was the first time I ever seen my dad cry, and he was crying, and then he said to me, and I don't know if he said to me, but I remember him saying this. Sorry. I'm not crying because I'm sad he died. I'm crying because I never had a real father. And it stuck with me for a long time. And I was writing this new script and it just found its way in there. I was like, this is perfect for this guy.
Yeah.
That's who he is. I ended up scrapping it because of economy of words, take a lot of stuff out, anything that doesn't serve it amazingly, I just take it out. But it was in there for a period of time. And it's similar to my dad, like if I think about why do I do everything that I do, why have I always tried to be such a high achiever, why do I sit there for 10 to 14 hours a day trying to make movies when I could be out there doing something else, living my life in a different way.
Streaming.
Streaming. Why do I do all that? It's because the thing that I always wanted from my dad, which was respect, was very hard to get. And the only time I ever felt like I got anything like that from him was through sporting, through accolades. And he was still very tough on us. So for me, it's really hard for me to find joy, and not joy in what I do. It's really hard to find satisfaction in what I do because, even when I write a new script, I think, okay, celebrate. No. It's not time to celebrate. I need to finish the script. I got to wait till I get to the point where I've finished the 13th draft where I'm like, that's as good as I want to get it right now. And then even then I'm like, no, I got to wait till I get it made. But once it gets made, I got to wait till see what the critics say of it, how it does at the box office. And then it'll see how it goes over the years. You know what I mean? It's never going to stop, but I understand that. And it doesn't matter because I enjoy the process, but that's a huge driver to me is because I always wanted my dad to respect me. And he does respect me, don't get me wrong. But at the time, and because of the way his dad was an alcoholic, really bad dude. And so they never got a lot of love from him, and he did a lot of really bad stuff and to the children. So when, you have him who's a very soft version of what his dad was, but his dad was a very good dad, did nothing bad by us. He was tough on us. Yeah. But it was very hard to get love and respect off of him because he'd never get it when he was a child. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I'm hardened now and I'm callous in a lot of ways. But he was at another level. Right. And I'm sure his father was at a level beyond that.
He improved on what he came from.
Exactly.
You've improved on what you came from.
And I'm sure I'll be the same thing with my future child as I'll improve on that. And so, but I'm definitely hardened because of that. And I don't give enough appreciation to people because I have such incredibly high standards of myself. It leaks over into my expectations of everybody. And it probably brings me more frustration than anything. So when someone does something that they may consider, great, like if someone finishes a script and I finish a script, for me it's like, cool, you got to go do more, do more.
Right. Because that's what you're telling yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I've got to and I when I was gaming, I'm definitely not the most pleasant person to game with because
Kiko.
It's a bit funny.
I want a joke, I know, but
no, but it's funny. But I'm not because I take it so damn seriously. If I'm playing to win, and I expect you to play the same way, and I'll hold you to a high standard, and I'll get frustrated with you. Yeah. But I don't hold anyone.
You'll put the gun on the table.
Exactly. And I used to play football with people like that when I played in Australia. I used to get paid to play football. There was a couple of guys that came down from the highest level. Gary Moorcroft was one of them, and he was a bit of a hero to me. He was fucking unbelievably hard on us. Like if we did something wrong, he was drilling us. And I never loved that kind of coaching, but I appreciated it afterwards. Mm-hmm. I never loved hard parenting. I never liked getting hit. And I don't condone hitting children. Sure. But I never liked it, but I see what it's brought me, and I'm glad that I had it because it made me a lot harder. Yeah. And in a world like today, if we need a lot more good men that are tough and that are hard, not bad men, but good men that can do that. So I'm glad that I can contribute to that side of things, but I can definitely come off as, like I said, callous. And I can definitely trigger a lot of people because I'm very honest with my beliefs. I'm straight out honest that I don't know everything for sure, and I could be as wrong as any other person, but I'll tell you exactly what I think and honestly, and I don't sugarcoat it. I just try and get straight to the truth. And in this world, that doesn't go down very well right now because a lot of people are very emotionally soft and they're triggered very easily. And we're pampering a lot of people instead of building them up. So it makes me kind of look more like a bit of a monster in a lot of sense. But then whenever anyone gets to know me, they go, okay, he's nothing. He's a really nice guy. But I can come off as, hard like that. And as a coach, the same sort of thing. But I think it's appropriate in certain measures. And it's also depends on who the student is. You got to know whether a student can take that and what level. I want to build all my students up and I want to build all my friends up and I want to make them stronger. To do that, you have to expose them to, hard things, tough things that scare them, things that they don't like to hear. But you've got to know exactly at what point. You go too far and you become a bully.
Yeah.
You go too little and you're just not even affecting them. So sometimes with Sheldon, for example, we've had he'll say something and I'll be like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why you did this. You just know it's wrong and to stop doing it. And I can be harsh like that. I can be like, I don't give a fuck. It doesn't matter. Don't even tell me. Just change it.
Yeah.
Other times I can see him and I can see what's going on in his head and I pull him aside and I'll go, look, you're doing great, bro. Don't be so hard on yourself. Remember, so you got to be able to, you got to know when to sort of pick him up and when to pull him down, pick him up and break him down. You know what I mean?
100%, dude.
That. But you go too far one way and you're a monster. You go too far the other way and you're just not doing anyone any good.
Yeah. And a lot of people never come to the awareness that you have to treat people and coach people differently. Yeah. And I think many times because they don't see how they could do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I was talking to my buddy of mine. It's like, why? I was like, man, it's so hard to change. And then some people never try. And I was like, I feel like that might be just like if they ask themselves, if I did train, what would I do? Like, I don't even know what to do. Like, that's scary. That's too scary. So I won't change.
Yeah. There's a lot of you got to look at every person and think, okay, the first key to a lot of success is like two things. It's discipline or belief. And if you lack both of them, you're probably never going to do anything because you're never going to believe in yourself and you're never going to have the discipline to take the steps in which you should if you did believe in yourself. But if you have one, you can usually get away with things. If you have both, then you're a recipe for unbelievable success. But so few people have both.
Yeah.
So few people believe in themselves from the start and have the discipline to keep pushing to reach the limits that they could reach.
Yeah.
How many times? And I've fallen in this category so many times where I've got incredible belief in myself. I feel like I can do most things, and then I'll start doing most things. Then I'll realize, man, I was fucking out of my mind because this is way harder than I thought. But then the discipline will kick in and I'll just keep going.
Right.
But for my biggest problem has always been my motivation has changed. I will get really good at something and then I'll be like, I'm bored now. I want to go to something else. And a lot of it is because I want to be respected for what I do. And it's much easier to get respect at the start when you are not good at something and you show that you're good, rather than once they expect that you're really good, then you don't get the same kind of appreciation and respect sometimes.
Interesting.
You should have won your wrestling match. You're a Division I wrestler,
Yeah.
Or you're a world champion jiu-jitsu guy. You should have won that match. And then it's not as fun for me because I feel like the thing that I got into it for, which was ultimately for the respect.
Oh, okay.
I don't get that anymore. So, but if I went to and let's say you're doing archery and I come and I've never done archery before,
right, and
I show some kind of promise and talent, everyone's like, damn, bro, he's pretty good. He's got a lot of potential. And that feels good for me. My ego likes that, So I'm like, okay, I want to show them. Let's see. Let's show how good I can get really quickly at this. You know what I mean? It's like a challenge for me. But then once I get to that point where I'm like, with jiu-jitsu, I got to black belt faster than anyone in the world without having any prior grappling experience. But then once I did that, I was like, nah, it's not as fun anymore. People expect me to win. Same thing when I was playing football. Like I would get called into, if I got best on ground when I was playing football, no one would say anything. If I played an average game, I would get called in and I'd have a meeting with me, the kit, what's going on?
Right.
Yeah. they're paying me money. They expect, they expect it. But so I'm not getting that same kind of satisfaction anymore. And also, like, as I've gotten older, I've sort of selected goals that I feel like are much more difficult. I mean, I think filmmaking is probably one of the most difficult things in the world by far.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, I've done sport. I've done a lot of different things, art and stuff like that, and gaming. And I feel like filmmaking is really hard. And I think the hardest thing for filmmaking is it's not based on effort alone. You can, in sport, the great thing about sport is like, you want to be good, go train, get good, compete, you'll do well. People will notice. There's nothing, you can't hide someone that's winning all the time.
Yep.
In filmmaking, you can be the best screenplay writer in the world, and you can go send it to everyone, and most of them will be like, "Who's this from?"
Right?
Yeah, okay, I'll read it. Oh, yeah, I read it. Yeah, it was great. No, they don't even read your shit. You know? What I mean? To get them to just read one page, just read the first page, and you'll see that I can write, and then you'll see that it's worth having. To get them to do that is near on impossible.
Yeah.
That's the stage I'm at right now, where I've written like 6 or 7 different scripts. I have 3 ready to sell or 3 ready to make. More
Awesome.
importantly, there's one series that I would rather just sell because I just don't want to work on a series.
Yeah. You mean you've sold these?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
They're ready to.
Okay.
Trying to get meetings with people that have power is so hard because, one, they're getting bombarded with scripts all the time.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, most writers in Hollywood, most professional writers are not very good.
Yeah.
90% of them are not very good. 90% of almost most industries are not very good. It's the top 10% and the top 1 and top 1.1 that are the elite. But it just comes really low. So you're sending it to people like that, and you can do all the work and you can spend 2 years working on this script and have a great script, but they won't even look at it. And that's the hard part. Once they look at it, and once you get someone that believes in it, because you can get 10 people to look and go, it's a really good script, but it's not something that I would do, or I don't think it's for me, or it's just not a story I like. Have you got anything else? Oh, no, I've got the same stuff. Okay. But you get the one person that believes in it, and then suddenly it does well, and then suddenly everyone's like, okay, I got money for you. You got another script, let's go.
Right.
But that first little barrier is so hard. So for me, it's like I'm working so hard to build myself up because I know that's inevitably going to come. I don't know when, I don't know how, but it will come as long as I keep pushing it.
Yep.
And when it does, I'm not going to be a flash in the pan. I'm not going to be one guy that wrote one script. I'm going to be, no, here's 10 other scripts that we can make. And if not, I'm at a level right now because of all that work that I can write better scripts.
Yep.
And I'm not precious about my scripts. I don't care if I lost all of them tomorrow for some specific reason. I'll write more. I'll write different stories. Ideas. I'm never struggling on ideas. That's the easy part. It's just
That's great.
putting work in.
That's huge.
Yeah. For some reason, my brain works really well. Ideas are the easy part. But and I think that's probably the same reason why I failed miserably at school and stuff like that, because I hate repeating things unless it's food that I like to eat. Then I love repeating things. But I don't like, if you're going to teach me something and you give me a procedure for it, I hate it. I've had this is why I told you yesterday, I'm like, can you message me in the morning to remind me? Because I don't like writing anything down. I don't have any checklists. I don't like doing anything. I don't like organizing anything. I'm super chaotic and sporadic, but I like that. Even when it comes to seminars, like, what am I going to teach? I don't know until I get there. I'll look at who's there, and then I'll get a feeling for it, and then I'll go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I treat everything like language, and most of language is listening and then responding to whatever I see. So
but you've got a mind for that.
Yeah, it works like that. I feel comfortable in that. When most people would feel
completely lost.
Yeah. And I've been like that most of my life. Even when I was apprentice years ago, I remember my boss would be like, Kit, I want you to go down the back, and I want you to, and I start running off to the back already. He's like, Kit, I haven't even told you what to get. I'm like, oh yeah, what did you want? But I'm just like, I'm just going. I have ADHD, so it's like I want to hit the ground running. I want to make all the mistakes, learn from it, my own mistakes, and figure things out. Yeah. And I think it by far is the best way to learn, but it also requires the most amount of, not intellect, the most amount of self-evaluation and just constant thought, really, because you've got to start fixing your own mistakes. And half the time you don't know what's a mistake and what's right, and most of the time they're all mistakes. Yeah. But at the same time, a mistake at the right time can seem like the right thing, but it's still a mistake, and it just experience and time will tell you, the difference between both.
I might be wrong about this, but I feel like ever since I met you, I feel like you're not as hard. judgmentally on yourself. At least that's what's presented. Obviously, your internal monologue is different than what everybody's is, right?
It's hard for me to tell because I'm not really sure what you...
The reason I say that is because you tend to have so much fun. You're enjoying your life. Like every time I'm around you, whether we're rowing or getting food or whatever, you're just like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. And I feel like I come from a very judgmental background, so it's like I'm thinking certain things, right? But when I see you, I'm like, oh, I like the energy because it's so off the cuff.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a really good...
And you can't be that way if you're like super judgmental about certain things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny because I think because I enjoy a lot of what I do, I don't do things that I don't enjoy doing. Like I'm not gonna, if you said, Kit, if you do this for a year and you're gonna make it $10 million and it was accounting, I'm like, not a chance in hell. So everything I do, I enjoy. So that helps a lot. I enjoy the process of it, but I still take it very seriously. But I guess we got to look at what did we train together, and when we trained, you were helping me with a lot of wrestling. And because it's so new to me, I have zero expectations on what I should be doing. So I could probably have a lot more fun with it because of that. But if we're working something that I was a lot, let's say jiu-jitsu and you were kind of working with me on that, I could definitely have a lot higher expectations of where I should be.
Got it.
But I think I'm a very good learner in terms of my attitude towards learning. And I look at success as, making 10,000 mistakes and just correcting them all. So I don't have a problem with making mistakes. I encourage myself to make mistakes and try things and enjoy the process of it. But underlyingly, I still have unbelievable expectations with it and where I should go. So as I said earlier, I enjoy the things, but I don't get a lot of satisfaction out of it. I will get small little things, but I can't remember the last time I did something where I'm like, damn, you know what I mean?
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very rare that I do that where I'm like...
You remember that time?
Yeah, the last time was when I acted in that movie in 2015.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember going to the premiere of the film, and there was like 2,000 people there in different cinemas, and then we come out afterwards and just having people look at you and just like...
That's nice.
Yeah, and it was great. It just felt so good. It was awesome. And
you kind of feel like you're in your zone.
Yeah. And working on that movie was so fun. It was one of the best times of my life for sure. Before that would be winning world championships in jiu-jitsu, winning the Brazilian nationals in jiu-jitsu, those kind of moments. But they're very few and far between.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel
talking
like
about peak experiences, peak dopamine.
Yeah. Like this last 2 months, I made like $119,000 in 2 months. So that's nice. But it doesn't really mean much to me.
Right.
It's like, okay, it just helps.
Yeah. Helps pay the bills.
Yes, yeah. And I know that, this is going to take time, so it's going to buy me a little bit of comfort in a sense. But ultimately, like my next one is like when I get one of these movies made and I'm acting in it, and when I'm directing movies later on, they're the ones that are probably going to be the new big feelings where I'll probably get that next feeling of like, damn, this happened. And it will for sure happen with the movies because I've thought about it so many times when I'm writing, when I'm up there and I'm writing, I'm like, fuck me. Like, I can't wait for this to pay off because so much of it is so much discipline. Just sitting there. How many times I've been writing a story or started writing a story and I'm like, this is just utter trash.
Yeah.
And I'm not enjoying this one bit. And my whole body is telling me to stop, put on Pornhub, do something else, just get away from it, but like I sit there in it and I just keep going. And I know, eventually what'll happen is 10 pages later, I'll write one little thing and that'll spark an idea. And then suddenly I'll be like, yes, this is all worth it for this little nugget. And then I go on that and I get that inspiration back. So the discipline helps me push through those times where I'm not enjoying it. So then I magically stumble on something that I'm super inspired by, and then the motivation takes over and I'm loving it again, and then it'll go down again.
Yep.
And I know that for those times that it is down, when things do kick off with this, and when I'm one of the bigger filmmakers in the world and people come up to me like, bro, you come out of nowhere, I'd be like, nah, dude, not over nowhere. This goes back a long time.
I was streaming all my writing time.
Exactly.
You just weren't watching, dude.
Go watch it. We'll put a time lapse on me. Like,
I'll teach you everything. Just go watch it.
All those years of, watching movies from Blockbuster when I was a kid to getting a video camera with me and my two brothers, and filming skits, filming wrestling skits, filming fight scenes, filming comedy stuff.
Yeah.
All that, plus the 2 years, and by then how many years of constant writing and all the work, and every time I go to Sheldon to coach him, it's still me driving out there for 45 minutes, driving back, teaching for an hour and a half. Like all these hours, add up, and that'll be it might be the first time I cry in about 17 years. So that might be the breakthrough.
Dude, don't cry before that.
I'm trying
Don't
saving
do it.
him up. When it does, I can't, bro. As soon as I get that a little emotion, my inner dialogue is don't be a little bitch. Stop being a little bitch. Harden up. And I know it's not right.
Sure, no, whatever.
It's also not wrong. It just is,
exactly.
Yeah. And I think I remember where it happened and where it came from. And it's just, there was a point in my childhood where I just felt like it's not safe for me to be vulnerable.
Okay.
And I have to be the strong person. And that sometimes sticks with you for the rest of your life, if not until I break through it. But I do remember one time, and I got hit in my chest by my hat just whip. And I just remember thinking, like, I'm never going to cry for that again. I just can't. I need to be tough. I said to him, you ever touch me again, I'll fucking kill you. And then I think I cried once. I was at a funeral, at my auntie's funeral. And it wasn't even because of my auntie. It was just because I saw everyone crying. And it just by
osmosis, I guess.
Yeah, I just bawling my eyes out. And then one time in football, when I was young as well, 18 years old, I was playing in the senior football league, and I didn't have a great game, and we lost, and something just triggered in me, and I was just crying. I shouldn't have been crying then, and then breaking up with a girlfriend, I dumped her, and she was crying and made me cry when I was about 20. But I don't think and I'm 37, turned 30. I haven't cried since then properly. Yeah. I watch a movie or something or get inspired. It's more like I watch movies that make me feel like there's a moment in Avengers Endgame. Do you watch Marvel?
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah.
Remember the moment where Captain America and Iron Man and Thor are fighting Thanos at the end?
Yeah.
And they're just getting whooped, and they just keep coming back, and there's just no hope for him.
Yeah.
And then they get that call from, he's like, on your 6 cap. And it's like they come through, and all, like, the whole Avengers plus everyone else comes back to fight him. And that moment can make me tear up.
Okay.
Even talking about it, I can get emotional because I relate to that moment, because I feel like, and it doesn't mean it's true, but I feel like my whole life I've been fighting for things, and I have never had a lot on my side of things.
Really?
I feel like I've had a lot more against me than I have back in. I feel like I've been unlucky more than I've been lucky.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's true or not, that's just how I feel.
No, I get it.
I'm not like saying for like sympathy of anyone.
No.
Like, so I've had it hard. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
That's just how it feels for me.
Sure.
And when I see that moment of when everyone gets behind him and helps, like, I feel like that's what I've always wanted. And I don't feel like I've ever had that connection with the world like everyone else has. And I think this is half the reason. Like, when people pass away, and people that I know, I don't really get that sad. And I think a lot of it is to do with probably my relationship to my parents, where I felt like, and it's not true, but I felt like I wasn't connected.
Yeah.
I felt like I was always alien, and I felt like I never have that. As a kid, you kind of always have your mum there as like that safety net.
Right.
And I felt like I haven't had a safety net for a long time.
Damn.
And the same thing is like the life I live is like, that's how I live.
The least
as well.
safety net.
There's no safety
lifestyle
net.
possible.
Like, just go for it.
Hey, text me in the morning. Make sure I remember.
Yeah, exactly. And even like, I get a bit of money, and I'm like, you know what? I want to go buy this Hummer, $150,000 Hummer. Is that the safest investment? God, no. No, it's probably the worst investment. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't care. I'll make it back. I have that kind of attitude. I don't know if you ever watched Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Where he has the Walder Frey's wife, where
I only watched the first 4 seasons.
the Red Wedding in the 3rd season.
Okay.
Right, where Robb Stark is was meant to marry Walder Frey's daughter, and he decides not to, and
right.
The mother grabs his wife and says, "I'll slit her throat and if you don't let my son live." Right. And then he just looks and he's like, I'll find another. And I kind of have the same attitude as like, you know, if something happens financially, it's like, I'll find another way. I'll find out. All my investments are in myself. I don't have any investments outside of that. One thing is because like, I don't really know where to invest. I don't spend any time in there. So it'd probably be a dumb investment. And I don't want to spend time trying to figure out what land to invest in or anything like that. It's a world that I don't find any interest in. I just want to be able to be wealthy enough that I can pay someone else to do that kind of stuff that knows that shit. For me, I invest in myself. It's always been in myself, my own ability to do things, my own ability to, you know, self-help books, all that kind of stuff, you know. So right now I feel like, I don't need to worry. Anytime I really want, I could go back and compete. I could make money. I can go teach somewhere, teach seminars and make money.
Yeah.
There's always a way I can make money. I just don't want to have to. I want to be able to do it in the way that I absolutely love.
For sure.
And the hardest thing is that just takes time, and it takes a lot of effort. It usually takes, you know, anywhere between 4 to 10 years of spending money before you start getting even close to breaking even. And then if you keep doing it, that's where you start making unbelievable money. And that's where, you know, like, you know, I did that in jiu-jitsu. So now I can make a couple $100,000 in a month or so if I really put my mind to it.
Yeah.
And eventually film will be like, oh, well, you work so hard on that, you're building movies, eventually you're going to be able to make millions doing that. But it's a lot of work, and a lot of work that I would never do if I wasn't absolutely passionate about it and loved doing what I'm doing. Otherwise, it would just be like the dumbest thing in the world for me.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, it brings me a lot of joy. I love it. Has a very good reward if you do very well in it.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a lot of little, you know, slippery slopes you can slide off in the wrong areas, which I feel like I'm disciplined enough not to fall through those. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do any drugs. I don't even drink coffee. Kombucha is the only thing I drink, you know, and water. Not enough water.
Yeah.
And I eat well. So I feel like I'm going to be pretty good. I don't think I'm going to be one of those to get too obsessed with, let's say, fame or something like that. And then when it dwindles, which it always will, be like, oh, I need to hit the drugs to get the same high, or I need to do something outrageous, or, you know, it's like, it is what it is. I try not to be moved by any of it, but the only thing I want to be famous, the only reason I want to be famous is because I can get food a lot quicker. I don't need to line up in places. I'm not going to have to wait for a car that I want. They'll put you forward and they'll put you first and those kind of things, which sucks, but it is what it is. You know, I hate it now because I'm not, but when I am, that'll be good. The downside of that is you can't do anything anymore without someone seeing you or watching you.
Yeah, got to get some good disguises, man.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm going to get some mad-ass wigs every day, put makeup, but you kind of forfeit your
anonymity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I can handle that. It doesn't really bother me too much. I've never felt too uncomfortable with people knowing or people wanting things. Obviously, you're going to attract the wrong people, but I think for me, it's a win.
I agree.
Yeah.
When you started, so I remember you said, I got to make these movies myself. I had that moment when I was out here acting. I was like, what is going on? And I started doing stand-up. I got in a couple places, and then I realized how hard it was to continuously get in these places, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not as good as a lot of the people in there. Duh, I haven't done it that long. But also, my buddy, I had some friends who are super hilarious who can't get booked in a big... I'm like, oh, there's politics here. Yeah. How do I get around that? How do I do it myself and figure that out? And that's why I started the podcast. But you said you want to make your own stuff, but you picked up writing, and you'd never written before. Why did you do that instead of like finding other people's stories to direct? Because you want to make them, right?
Yeah.
So what was that?
I think I just enjoy creating so much of my own thing. I don't love acting in someone else's story, and the amount of times it's actually worth acting in or I feel passionate about it is almost never.
Right.
You know, I'm lucky enough to get a role in something. Yeah. You know, and then to be lucky enough to get a role in something that
you
really
like
means something to me that I like it's very unlikely.
Yeah.
So the thing that I like about when I'm writing myself, and now I got an audition for a show in Hawaii for a lead as a surfer, this Australian surfer, in this new show that's coming out. I don't give a shit. I don't even care. I'm going to give it the worst audition, the most rough. I don't care. Yeah. Because I'm so focused on. I'm just going to make my own stuff. The more I've done this, the more I'm like, I don't want to act in other people's stuff anymore. I feel like you almost, instead of being a cog, you become the architect. Yep. And I think that I think that writing is so much easier than I originally thought. I thought that, you know, you had to have a gift when it comes to writing. I just think you just got to put a lot of work into it and stumble across a good story. But most of them are very formulaic, and it's very simple to get really good at it. But I just love doing my own thing and building my own thing. A lot of the joy I get is because it came from me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've never been the one to like to cheat. You know, in jiu-jitsu right now, there's so many people doing steroids.
Oh yeah.
Not to say it wouldn't help. It would help me tremendously.
Yeah.
But there's a point in my head where it's like, it's just not me. It's
Right.
not real.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the most important thing. So when it comes to making movies, if you write and I'll tell anyone this, and I have no problem. A lot of people, you know, will read my scripts and they'll say, "Hey, let's work together on something." I just tell them straight away. I said, not that I don't respect or appreciate what you do. I just don't have any interest in that. I want to do my own things. I want to have control of it, and I want to do everything. You know, I know I can't because it's a lot of moving parts.
Eventually, you have to get somebody to do this.
Exactly. So, you know, with that, the creative part of me loves being able to do things myself, and the masculine part of me loves being able to solve any problem. And if I think to myself, I want to be a movie maker, but I can't create a movie, then there's a part of my masculinity that is just dying right there. And I think I remember reading
by accepting that you can't do something.
Yeah. I think a big part of happiness is solving problems for men. You know, and we always try and do it. Girls come to us and like, oh, I'm having this. First thing we think about doing is I'm gonna solve it for you, instead of just what they actually want, which is a hug and some comfort. So, but I'm always thinking, how do I fix things? If you come to me with a problem, the first thing I want to do is I want to help you solve it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But for me, a big part of feeling fulfilled is being able to do things myself. And that's why I didn't like learning techniques when it came to jiu-jitsu or anything else. I just want to figure it out myself because that's what brings me the most satisfaction. So when I first started thinking about filmmaking, I never thought about making it, and I thought that, you know, the writing part would be so tedious and boring, and my brother was doing that. So I would give my brother ideas, and he would try and write it, and we would go back and forth, and I would just read it and say, oh, I think you should do this and that, and we tried that. We haven't worked together.
And then you had the time difference too, so. Yeah.
And I kind of, at the time, I gave it a lot more respect than what I needed to. You know, I just thought, you know, it must take so long to get good at writing, and it's just so hard. I'm never going to be able to do it. I can come up with ideas, but I could never write. Yeah. And then I just forced myself to try it, and I was like, okay, this is not near as hard as I thought. Actually, and this is fun. You know what I mean? I'm like, actually, I'm enjoying it. That were absolute junk, the stuff that I was writing. Like, I could read it. I got a photo of it here. I could read it to you and you just laugh. It's so on the nose crap.
Yeah.
I almost want to pull it up just to show you.
But that happens.
Yeah. It's, you know, but I have very little interest in acting in other people's stuff. Almost even if it is really good, I just don't really care that much right now. I'm more about just building myself up and do my own movies and take real control of it, which I never thought of originally. Like, I just thought of acting, and then I thought, no, actually, you know what? I'll start writing as well. And then I thought, you know what? I'll start directing. And then I was like, I want to produce as well. Actually, I want to fucking finance these films as well. Yeah. I would love to be able to do all of that, because when you know, it's great. You write a movie, you know, they come in, they buy it, or you act it. But then if it does really well, you get such little of the, you know, of the reward of that. It's whoever financed your stuff.
Exactly.
So I would love to build myself up to the point where I just finance my own movies. Right. Obviously, these are humongous goals. And anyone listening to this is going to have the right answer is, you're never going to do this, Kit. But I'm going to keep going until I can try and...
Absolutely.
I'll just... If I don't, I'll fall trying anyway. But that's the ultimate goal with that. And I prefer that. And I feel like I've just taken control back. I go back to Marvel again, when Thanos, in one of the movies, Thanos wanted them to get the rings and they couldn't. They fail. At the end, he comes in, he puts his hand in the Infinity Gauntlet, and he's like, I'll do it myself. Like, that's how I felt. I was like, okay, you don't want to cast me. You don't want to put me in the movies. Okay, I'll do it myself.
That's funny.
And then they've created a monster in me.
Uh-oh. That's funny, man. You really love those...
I did love them.
I remember when they came out.
Not anymore. Now,
and you were like, Thanos is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I love them now. I hate them now. Sorry, I love them then. I hate them now.
Oh, you don't want to go with me and see Marvels?
I already saw it, bro.
Ugh.
It was the biggest bit of shit I've seen.
Damn. How much was that ticket?
Too much. $25.
Jeez.
Yeah. A lot of time I'll go watch movies because I think it's right to watch them before I criticize them. I went and watched Barbie as well. You know, a lot of these movies I'm...
Which one?
Barbie.
I hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah, I hate woke movies.
For sure.
I don't like the woke movement. And that's a big reason why I got into filmmaking, because the woke movement has pushed me out of my opportunity to act. And that's just the way it
Well,
is.
I see a black man in front of me, so
I
don't
feel
see
like
color.
halfway down. Anyway. There's a part
I was
of me.
wondering when that was going to come into the podcast.
It's going to come.
The dick jokes are coming.
But that was a huge reason why I was in it. But I went to watch it. It was just terrible. It's just like it was an obvious attempt for a girl power movement, but it just does nothing for females. It does nothing for the movies itself or to push any story. It was very boring. I can't imagine any girls are going there feeling like empowered by whatever trash that was.
And if they are, very disillusioned.
Yeah, big time. Big time.
I've said this for a while, but like you realize things that men do that we should probably pull back on when women start to do it, and you're like, maybe we should stop the superhero drops. You know, like when they jump off the, and then when you see a woman do it, you're like, damn, I think the men should stop too.
Yeah,
maybe.
I realize how cringe
it's
this
corny
is.
as shit.
Yeah. Nah, but back then, I think Endgame and Infinity War, Marvel had it right. They had everything right. Disney took over, and it's just gotten, whether it's because of the ETG or whatever that is, that ESG, or whether it's just Disney wanting to pump out 3 different movies every single year with 3 different series, and they're just running light. But the problem that I see with and my perspective on it, when I say I don't like woke stuff, it's just I don't want unorganic pushes for different sexes, different sexual orientations, or different different ethnicities, that are unorganic. Like I don't think we should go, okay, we're in this script, we need a Korean guy and an African American in here, because like why? Right. If it makes sense.
Equal representation, kid.
If we're set in the 90s and we're in Harlem, okay, we're not going to put 2 white guys in here because it would be unrealistic. Yeah. It doesn't mean they couldn't be, but I would say I'd rather see what was really going on there. Yeah. So for me, it's like the best person for the role should always get the work. And that's not just with acting, it's with writing, it's with directing. But right now, for many years, we've had the right gender, the right sex, the right ethnicity is getting the role, which does not equate to the best person. And then suddenly we've got a whole influx of terrible movies, and I don't think anyone's going to disagree. The movies in the last couple of years have been probably the worst of the whole history of films. And there's a huge coincidence, as to what we're performing. So it's not that I don't want to see like people who take it, oh, you're racist, you're sexist, you're homophobic. Not at all, or any of that. No. I just want it to make sense. That's all. I don't want to. That's
all I want here.
And see like, okay, we've got the 15 different sexes in here, 15 different ethnicities. Like, and it's just a Netflix running joke right now. And Marvel's the same thing.
Dude, it literally is. Courtney and I started the Fall of the House of Usher. It's a new Netflix show.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Loosely based off of Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Fall of the House of Usher. They made an old film with, I think, Vincent Price back in the maybe 50s or 60s or something like that. But anyways, loosely based on it. But they introduce the patriarch, the head of the house, and then every child he has, right? The first person is a daughter who's married to a man, and they're complaining about the girl that they've paid to come over to sleep with them. Okay, so now their sexual deviancy, right? The second couple, the second daughter is a black woman who is a surgeon who is a lesbian. The third child is his son who is getting head from a woman, but his fiance, who is a man, is coming up the elevator. And then the last child was this gay bartender guy who was talking about making like this sexy open sexuality bar for everybody to come into. And it's just like, that's not nuance.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's forced fed.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I'm so sick of seeing it in a sense when it's not organic. Like there's a really good movie called Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that one.
Great movie. Yeah. Okay. 2 gay kids, fucking phenomenal. They do some shit that I watch and it makes me a little bit like, I'm not homophobic, but when I see 2 men kiss for some reason, I'm just like, oh.
Because you're straight.
It is like
That's what that fucking is.
I don't have any anger or any dislike towards them. It just makes me feel funny.
It is funny.
And I get a little bit,
a little bit,
I don't know what that is, but but either way, like it does make it. So I was watching Game of Thrones, rewatching Game of Thrones, and Prince Oberyn Martell comes in. And now at the time when Game of Thrones come out, he's a bisexual and he's like fucking dudes, he's fucking girls. At the time I was like, oh, cool, it makes sense. Yeah, it was like one of the only ones in there. But when I went to rewatch it now, I hated watching it. Because I'm like, I've seen so much in the last couple of years that I feel like the same. I'm like, why are they throwing this in my face? I'm like, oh, no, at the time this came out, they weren't throwing it in our face. Right. It actually made sense. Yeah. It's just I'm so sick of seeing it right now that like now I go watch old movies and anything that had an old movie and I feel like it's the same thing. But it wasn't, you know? Yeah. But, you know, Brokeback Mountain's another movie that's a phenomenal movie. Right. You know, but, you know, about that. Like, I'm happy to see all that kind of stuff as long as it makes sense. Yeah. But I don't need to see every single ethnicity in every single movie I watch and, like, everyone is a half gender or something or a mixed race. And it's just like, I don't know. It's like if there was, like, a huge, you know, culling of white people, but I just don't see them that much. And when I do see them, I'm so surprised that I see one. I'm like, oh my God, it's a white guy. And then like 10 seconds later, he's either the baffling fool, right, or he's the most evil dude in the film. Yeah, like, exactly. Damn. Yeah, the old baffling fool. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man, I worry about kids, man. Like kids watching this and thinking it's normal. Yeah. You know what I mean? Obviously, parents, you know, can limit what their kids watch or whatnot, but like if you're not policing your kid all the time, and they're watching all these shows or movies with like the randomest minorities in the position of like, oh yeah, this is normal. And then I was reading an article the other day and it was talking about how kids now are almost rewarded for being of any minority, gender, sexual orientation. So much so that their parents, you know, a lot of these woke parents will celebrate them and want to be the parent of a transgender child. Yeah, as almost a badge of honor. Yeah, yeah. And it's like that's going to look really bad when they turn 18. You know what I mean? Like or 16. I mean, it's really sad. Or when this blows over. Yeah, which it's going to. And they're like, oh, so this is just a mental illness for most of them. But no, but honestly, for most of them, you know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. Like if somebody came up to me, like kid, if you came up to me and you're just like, dude, I feel like I'm worthless. I feel like I don't have any reason to live. I'm going to kill myself. I would not be like, good for you. You know what I mean? Good for you. You express yourself the way you need to. I'd be like, no, dude, you're going through something. All right, this is not the normal way you should be thinking. Let's get on a track here. Boom, 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 boom. Let's figure out what's causing this. But there's nothing like that when somebody says, I want to chop off sexual organs. You know what I mean? Something's up there. You know, it's funny. If you said to somebody, hey, I'm hearing voices in my head from the Lord, they would say you're crazy. But if you said, hey, I think I'm a female in a male body and I need to chop off my big dick, then it's like, you go, brave. Girl. You're the best. You're the best. And I try not to say this with any kind of judgment. I have friends that I have trans friends as well. Me too. And I'm happy for anyone to do whatever they want. I just don't like the pushing of people into it. Exactly. The conditioning of children into this kind of stuff. Yep. And do I think it, we had it perfect the first time? No, I don't think we had it perfect, but I think we've got it a lot worse right now. And I think, the strive for perfection should be important, but we've kind of overshot that by a mile, I think. But, everything, I try and strive for perfection. I miss it by a mile in almost most areas. I have things in my life that I have been in battle for. I've had anxiety since I was 16 years old. I have not once beaten it. I've thought suicidal thoughts before. I've been in all that kind of stuff. I know that battle. I'm trying to all the time, but I'm also trying to be very realistic and trying to understand how easily I can be manipulated and brainwashed and by the information that I keep soaking myself in. And I wish people were the same. And I think right now, and you can see this with the amount of polarity in politics, in all this kind of stuff, people just tend to not understand how they could most likely be wrong. Yeah. Or be so brainwashed by the amount of information they're throwing in themselves in this echo chamber we call social media. My brother sends me a bunch of unbelievable, hopefully he's not watching this, but he sends me some of the most crazy, my other brother, the most crazy conspiracy theories. And I love conspiracy theories, and I always love alternate history, and I love, I'm a fucking storyteller. I love that kind of shit. Half the time I'm like, I want to make this into a movie. Do I think this is plausible? Absolutely not. But would it be fun? Hell yeah. But so many people just are not open, or they're not aware enough that they could be brainwashed.
Right.
And they think they're so right. And they're so right about everything. I put a dangerous amount of thought into everything I think about. I have ADHD. I think about everything too much, to the point where it's detrimental to me.
Yeah.
And the more I get to the bottom of something, the more I realize, shit, nobody knows what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the best people in jiu-jitsu in the world. Best people at jiu-jitsu in the world, not in jiu-jitsu. And my most common answer for a question is, it depends.
Right.
It depends, because there's so many different factors. And when you see right now, whether it's pro-Palestine or pro-Israel, they're so certain that, no, this is the absolute.
Yeah.
Israelis are coming in and they're killing children in hospitals, or the opposite,
right.
whatever it is. Like, they're so certain they know. I mean, how do you know?
Were you there?
I saw a video. This guy said it, and this guy. It's like, everyone is so fucking stupid these days because they hear something and they believe it because it resonates with their already fucking strong belief system. At least, like, try and debunk things. Like, before I teach anything, I'm sitting there trying to figure out, is this is this right? How many ways could I be wrong before I teach that? Yeah. Even right now, I've been teaching classes for free, jiu-jitsu classes. The only reason I'm teaching them is because I'm using them as case studies to practice what I teach, and I'm seeing what works better, and I'm trying different things. And I just wish people would have the same, or put the same effort into their own belief systems, whether it's about politics or whether it's belief systems about themselves.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would just help them so much in being where they want to be. How many people are actually where they want to be?
Yeah.
Or even worse, how many people are on the path to be where they want to be?
Yeah.
I guarantee you speak to 99% of people and they would have said, this is where I wanted to be, but this is where I am.
Yeah.
There was a good saying yesterday. What is it? There's like, no distance is longer than where you thought you should have been and where you are right now.
Yeah.
To most people. But as long as you're on that path. But I mean, just being aware and just understanding that the information affects you so much.
Yeah.
It's such a big step into going, okay, well, if I've been able to be convinced or brainwashed that these things have happened, how can I brainwash myself into loving myself more?
Yeah.
How can I brainwash myself into doing things for myself? How can I brainwash myself into wanting to help people, more than what they are? And I'm not saying I've got that right, but I'm definitely on that path of trying to do that.
That's good.
And I think the world would be a lot better if we all took a leaf out of that book and just be aware that we're, like, if we were in Nazi Germany, we could have all been Hitler at one stage. We could have all been, one of the Nazis.
Oh, yeah.
We could have all been anyone. We're just a couple different steps away, a couple situations away from being anywhere, and we need to be aware of that because we kind of drift off into a spot and we just don't find it. I think the first time was like with COVID. With that, you get separation between you're either anti-vaxxer or you're pro-vaxxer.
Right.
Where I'm sitting in the middle. I'm like, do the fuck what you want. Just don't touch me. You know what I mean? And even I can look like I'm the bad guy. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I'm lucky with the information that seems to be coming out, whether it's right or wrong, that I might have been in the better place for myself. I haven't had COVID once yet.
Oh, wow.
And I've been with people. I've kissed people that had COVID. I've trained with people that had COVID, and I haven't had it once.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
Unless I had it and just never had any symptoms. But I tested most times anyone ever had it around me. I would still test to check. But I'm more like, just live your life. Don't bother others.
Yeah.
But don't tell me what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's probably why I resonate more with the right than the left, even though I don't like right or left.
Sure.
It's because I feel like the right, lets me do, apart from abortion stuff, lets me do what I want to do, where the left is like constantly trying to put a needle in me and make me wear masks and shit like that.
Yeah. And cut off your, the goodies. I think what happens, like, because, I live out here too, man. I'm not, LA's not America.
Yeah.
And I've trained some immigrants who moved to America, but only moved to LA. And they're like, America's this. I'm just like, here? And there's 50% of the country that's not LA.
Where are you from?
North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the South.
Yeah.
So, and I have friends who, I try to get on the podcast out here, and they're like, yeah, man, I can't talk about that stuff that we get to talk about on the internet. I was like, dude, 50% of America would love to hear it. But they're like, no, this is America. LA is, the bubble that we live in is what the whole country thinks. It's like, no.
I can't even get people to come out here. And most of the friends
Really?
I'm not coming to LA.
Yeah.
They hate it so much.
Justifiably
But
so.
I know people here that have said like, hey, you should go. I spoke to someone, I can't remember what it was the other day, and I was listening to him, and it was something about in Texas they're doing something. He's like, oh no, I'll never go to Texas because it doesn't align with my beliefs.
And if I like it, oh my God, I don't know what I'd do with myself. I might have to kill myself.
I might have to get a concealed carry and start shooting targets.
Yeah.
It's weird.
But I think what happens is like, we're talking about people getting brainwashed or whatever, in an echo chamber or whatever. I think it's obviously, it's easier to make a black and white stance on something than to be like, you know what? Some of this I like, some of this I can understand. I'm not quite sure.
You got philosophy books there. Who was the philosopher that was fighting for a belief? And it might have been that the earth was the center of the universe. And he was the one that ended up proving himself. He ended up proving that he was wrong, but he sat on that information for so long because he was worried about being wrong. So there was one philosopher, and I don't know if that was exactly it. So maybe someone watching this will know. But let's say you think that the Earth is in the center of the universe, and I'm so sure it is. I go out there to prove you wrong, and then I actually stumble upon the information that proves myself wrong.
But I hold it.
But I hold that information. Yeah. There was a philosopher that did that. I can't remember which one it was, but that seems to be the truth. And I think it stems from a tribalistic standpoint where if you were not...
You'll be outcast.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you have conversations out here where you know what not to say.
Oh, bro. Right. Like, as I said, like I got to be really careful what I say.
Yeah.
Because in film, especially, and people will warn you now. They're just like, and I'll have a meeting with something. They just be careful.
Hey, kid.
They're super woke. And I'm like,
I know you.
I'm like sitting like, don't make any jokes. Don't do anything funny. Like, hi, hey.
I don't even have a dick. I can't even make a joke about it.
I don't even want it anymore. So I've got to be really careful. But you're right. Like people don't want to be wrong because they're worried about people valuing them less.
Yeah, well, they're worried about getting ostracized.
Yeah, which is the fucking wrong thing. How much I love it when I see someone, especially that's a mentor, that realizes they're wrong about something and has a good attitude about it.
It's the best.
Or comes to you and just says, hey, bro, I thought this, but I was fucking wrong. Actually, it's this. And it's like, dude, now I can trust this guy.
Yeah.
But the rest of these motherfuckers I can't trust because they're never going to admit that they're wrong.
Right.
And I see this all the time. Like I'll be talking to people and we'll have a discussion about something and it'll be something small and I realize they're wrong. Okay, by some kind of scientific fact. And I know they realize the same thing.
Yeah.
But they will still fight tooth and nail just because they don't want to be known as wrong. Or they don't want to admit that they're wrong.
Yeah.
For me, I admit it straight away. Like, I'm like, fuck. Actually, you know what? You're right. I actually like that because I feel like that's part of progression.
Yeah, 100%.
Regardless of anything. Like, even with my script, when I get notes, like, I was attached to act in a movie in Australia. Okay, this guy was filming a movie in Australia. He sent me the script. And I auditioned for it. I got the part. He sends me a script and I'm reading it. And just as an exercise, I do notes on all scripts that I read, just for myself.
Yeah.
And then I told him when I sent it back, I said, hey, I did a bunch of notes as well. I said, I can just throw them out. But if you want them, I can send them to you. He's like, yeah, sure, send them. I send them to him. He does not like this. He messaged me, hey, call me. I need to call you right now. You've totally misinterpreted the whole script. And then he goes through every single one and tries to justify them in the most ridiculous way ever. And
like,
I don't really
have
care.
to.
Yeah. I don't give a fuck, man. I thought I would do this to help you.
Right.
But you're sitting there having to justify it. So, okay. And then he messages me, emails me the day after, hey, just letting you know that, I spoke to some of the producers and you left a bad taste in their mouth. And I think we're going to go in a different direction with your character. I'm like, I don't give a shit, bro. I don't even care. I was like, I feel like I'm doing this for you to help you with your film. I don't need this, and I'm not going to make any money. I would have to spend money to be on your film. Like, and at the same time, I was actually really worried about committing because I felt like something that I need was going to pop up, which did. I can't remember what it was, but regardless, he kicks me off his script because he can't handle any criticism.
Right.
Okay. And especially from someone like me.
Yeah, you're
That was the
beneath
main
him.
thing. Exactly. So
You're an actor, dude.
and now I get notes all the time.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I said, bro, read my script. I don't give a shit whether you like it or not. So don't tell me you like it because you think I care. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to know what didn't work for you.
Yeah.
And be honest with me. Okay. If you didn't like a character, you didn't like the whole script, just be honest. It's not going to hurt. I need to know this. Doesn't mean I'm going to agree with every note. There might be
100%,
certain
yeah.
things you say that I just don't agree with that. I think I'm right on this.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. I don't need to tell you that.
Yeah.
I just say thank you so
okay,
much.
cool. Thank you.
You're fucking awesome. You did 2 hours worth of work for me, or even more. Like, I appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
Even if every one of those notes I disregard, like, I still appreciate it. I'm
Right.
never going to sit where if my ego could be like, oh, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
So the first time I got notes, it hurt. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because I'm like,
Oh,
this
yeah.
girl, she told me, and she's like, I don't like this, don't like this, don't like that, and everyone else was kind of pandering.
During COVID, you're saying?
Yep.
Okay.
I think it was just after COVID when I wrote my first script, and most other people would read it and go, "Oh, yeah, it's really good." Da, da, da. And
Right.
She just ripped in it. So the first thing I want to do is like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, you.
You.
Just turn into Cartman. Hey, bitch.
And so I ended up killing it. And,
All right, yeah.
I
We'll cut that out.
it bothered me, and I was like sitting there looking at it, and I was thinking about what I'm going to say to her, and then I looked at it again. I'm like, fuck, she's right, actually.
Okay.
And then it felt good. I'm like, no, I'm going to fix these things. This is going to make the script way better. This is great. And then from then on, it kind of switched in my head. I was like, it's really good when you find out what's not working and why, because then
Yeah.
you get a chance to make something better.
Right.
There's nothing I feel like worse than when you have a script and you're like, I don't know how to make this better. I don't think I can. There's nothing better when you realize if I change this makes it better. And then you're constantly just getting that 91%, 91.1%, 91.2%. And it just gets better and better.
Yeah.
So I think if we had the same attitude with most of our life of just being able to be wrong and improve yourself,
Yeah.
the world would be a lot better.
Well, that's why I totally agree.
That's what.
But that's why when people do that around me, I like celebrate that. Because a lot of people don't do it because of something in their past when somebody was like, I knew you didn't fucking know,
Yeah.
bitch.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's like, I remember when I started dating Courtney, she could not tell me that she didn't know something. Not in a bad way. But I'd be like, hey, so when you did that, did that happen? She was like, oh yeah. And I'm like, it happened just like this? Yep. I was like, hold on. You're telling me that happened when you did this exactly like this, like it would never have happened before, but except this time. Oh, no. And I'm like, it's okay. It is okay. She's like, oh, yeah, well, I mean, of course it didn't happen like that, but like and I'm like, hold on, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the same thing? And she's like, oh, but like years of dating, I think a couple of years in, she was finally able to like understand what she was doing. She was like, when I was younger in school, when you didn't know something, like people would make fun of you.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, I know. Yep, okay, cool. And I was like, I knew that was what it was. But I mean, it's amazing that you're aware of it now. Because a lot of people get that way from school. And I remember that. I remember when some teachers would like egg on other students to make fun of you when you didn't get it right.
Fuck.
They'd just be sitting back laughing at the jokes. You're like, God damn, teach? Like, come on, man. And but yeah, that's the thing. And I think that just travels with you into adulthood. Like, I mean, are we really adults? Like, our bodies aged, but we're still kids, man.
It's so funny because you can be 40 years old and 25, and it doesn't really make the difference. You have like life experience and you have time to learn. And so often, most people don't learn shit.
Yeah.
They get a job, they have kids, and they learn as they go, but they're not really trying to perfect who they are and what they do and how to be a better person.
They're still in the way of themselves.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like, so you can take someone that's 70 years old and they have about as much knowledge as someone that's 17 with that's well-traveled. You know, I think I've been very lucky because
And
I've
wisdom
traveled a lot.
of a 17-year-old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the real problem.
Yeah. I think that as I've gotten older, because, you know, when I was younger, I'd look at an adult, oh, he's 25 years old. He's he's got all the answers.
Yeah.
That's it. He's
Yeah.
the one. You know what I mean?
The chosen
and my
one.
parents, my parents must have been,
Right.
my parents were like 21, 22 when they had me. But back then, I'm like, they had everything sorted. They got the answers. As I got older, I'm like, they had no fucking idea what was going on.
Right.
And they still don't,
Yeah.
And neither do I.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put the pieces together. But I'm always trying to improve.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how old you are. What matters is how you spent your time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Did you spend your time traveling and talking to new things? Did you spend your time studying Socrates or learning things or practicing stuff? Or did you spend your time just sanding walls as a plasterer, going to the pub and drinking beers and then going home?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that do that.
Yeah.
So age means fucking nothing
Yeah.
in certain aspects.
It's very interesting, man. When I don't think we've talked about this. I did psychedelic therapy.
Really?
Yeah, man.
I want to hear about this because I've thought about this as well.
Best thing I've ever done for myself.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you do?
MDMA and psilocybin.
Like in
Combo.
small doses or?
It was measured out. I had a therapist. Amazing therapist. Just
Really?
the best. She was amazing. And my intention going in was to get out of my own way, no matter what that is. And you and I can talk about this stuff of like, people are in an echo chamber, blah blah blah. It's all true, but then when you feel it, you know what I mean. Like when you feel that inner kit, that little kit, when he was hit with the hat in the chest or whatever, and you said, "I'm not fucking crying over this again," or something, whatever that is, you relive it, and that feeling is there.
Really?
And that's how you work through it.
Fuck, I need that then because I feel like it's very hard for me to do that myself.
Oh, 100%, dude.
Yeah.
You've got it here,
Yeah.
but the therapy is here, which is the strangest thing to say.
I've never seen a therapist ever. Isn't that
That's
nuts?
all right. I'd never seen a therapist until I did psychedelic therapy. I kind of jumped the gun with that.
No, but I think everyone should.
Oh,
I think
dude.
I think it's great. I just don't. And I think I get in my own way of that. And I think a lot of my friends, like Paul and all the guys.
Yeah,
shouldn't-
Paul,
shouldn't name all these guys, but they've all got therapists in different ways.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
they've all got life coaches in different
Nice.
ways. Which, back at home, no one sees a therapist.
Yeah,
but
not where I'm from
think
either.
it's- And look, I think everyone should, but here I am and I haven't. But I definitely want to.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear stories like that, and it's more like, I've been around really talented people and I've become talented at certain things and I realize how many people are just full of shit. So I'm like, I don't want to spend my money with anyone. So it's good when I hear someone like yourself that I trust and I'm like, okay, you tell me you have a good experience with this one person. That's the one I want to go to.
Yeah.
Because I know there's going to be a lot of therapists that are just a waste of time.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I can self-diagnose myself right now. I have a serious control problem where I feel like I need to have control of situations. And in situations I don't have control, I get anxious. But it also stems from having anxiety attacks when I was a kid from a reason I was unaware of, and I don't know why they happen. I could take several guesses. I lived around very rough family. I remember being at parties when I was this little, tiny little kid and seeing my uncles fist fight at the parties, and that's like scary as hell. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to kill each other.
Why do you have anxiety?
Hearing my other aunts,
You should be stress-free, dude.
It happened a lot. They just argued a lot, and I had a lot of
Trauma's
broken
passed
families.
down.
Yeah, and I woke up 16 years old one night out of nowhere, and I'm having a panic attack. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
I feel like I've had like 15 beers, and I'm just like I've got all this energy.
You've
and
had 15 beers before?
That's what I almost.
That's a lot, right?
The first time I drank, I had 9 shots in a row. The first time I ever.
Oh, that's why
drank
you don't drink now.
when I was 16.
Good God. Who does
I
that?
really had food poisoning. I didn't know what was going on. I thought, this is a normal amount. So I would 1, 2, 3, 4. Bro, I didn't want to. There's another story. I'm throwing up out of my nose.
That's crazy.
I don't remember any of the night.
That's crazy.
So that was my first time drinking. Anyway. So I wake up at 16 years old, and I'm at my friend's place, and he's got it's an old barn turned into a house. They were very wealthy.
Yeah.
And I'm running. I'm doing cartwheels down the hallway because I'm just trying to get out of my body.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
so scared. Where's your parents? Where's my dad? Like I feel like I've lost connection to anything safe, and that I'm probably going to die. That's how you kind of feel with an anxiety attack. I try to climb the fucking ledges of the door, and I'm like, I'm climbing, and then like I remember coming to. I don't remember what happened after. I remember coming to, and I'm sitting there, and my buddy's watching me with a cricket bat. He's just like, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I feel all right. And then he's like, and he went to turn the light off. I said, could turn it on again, just leave it on. And I went to sleep in his room. And that was the first time it ever happened. And then a few months later, same thing. Woke up in the middle of the night and just a massive panic. Don't know what's going on. Don't know why I'm panicking, but I'm in a bad panic. And I'd always feel real sick in the stomach, and I'd have to go towards the toilet or something.
Yeah.
And then it happened, and it got to the point where it happened 3 times in a row. Where I'm like, if this happens for another night, that's where I started thinking suicide.
Oh wow!
I just
can't live with
horrible.
this.
Yeah. And then I was really lucky. My cousin put me in touch with a Chinese herbalist.
Okay.
And I went to him, and he changed my diet. He gave me these herbs, and I stopped having them.
Oh wow!
Which was great. And then later on, years later, I had a different form of anxiety that kind of popped up because there's something in me. I don't know what's going on. It just sort of comes out. I just have where most people would have to go to panic mode, mine's like here. It's always close. It could be the littlest thing that makes me want to panic.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not really scared in much situations. I feel very confident with myself when it comes to violence and all that kind of stuff. But there's something inside from years ago or something that doesn't feel the same way and doesn't have a connection, an overwhelming feeling of like I am a split second away of suffocating or something like that. So I get a lot with my breathing. I can feel like, oh man, I'm breathing too much. I'm breathing too fast. I might hyperventilate. Fuck, try and slow it down. I get stressed, get anxious, or, I feel like the air's light in here. Like I'm not, it could be anything, and it just slowly triggers and it'll just bother me, and my mind's going a million miles an hour. It's hard to get out of there. I have to try and distract myself to try and get out of it. If I try and sit in it, I just struggle a lot.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to beat it much like that. So
yeah, because you're just not aware of the root.
Yeah, and it just hits me. So I've had that for myself, and I've tried, I haven't tried enough, honestly. I try and do my own things, but I really don't. I just sort of have learned to live with it, but I really should look into some stuff like that
100%,
may be able to help. Even getting, there's a really interesting thing I read about, and there's a gene mutation that like 40% of the planet has, that they don't break down a certain enzyme in the foliage or a certain vitamin in foliage. And if you don't, you're more likely to have chronic anxiety and a whole bunch of other stuff. And my cousins all got tested for it, and they've tested positive to this.
Okay.
This gene mutation. I'm going to Australia to do it there because I'm going back to Australia in 3 weeks. If I try and do it here, it's like $3,000. I do there, it's like $300. So I'm going to go do it there and get that tested. And if so, they just give you these vitamins that you normally can't produce that may, help me with that as well. Anything that helps still goes a long way.
Oh yeah.
But it's something I've struggled with for a long time, and it's the only thing I've ever wanted to change about myself.
Yeah.
And be a little bit taller with a bit more hair. But otherwise, I've always wanted to, that's the one thing that I felt like I just haven't beaten yet. I've learned to live with it, and I still learned to live a good life with it.
Yeah.
But I have anxiety every single day.
Interesting.
And people just wouldn't notice. I could be having an anxiety attack and you would never know.
Okay. And when you say anxiety, heart rate heightens?
Like everything.
But you're just sitting there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And you never know what triggers it? Is it a thought pattern?
It could be a thought pattern. It could
you
be
just don't really know.
Most of the time it's like something about my breathing now. But it's not really my breathing that's the issue. It's just something that I feel unsafe with. Like it could be my heart rate. I get like an extra beat or a skip beat or something like that.
And you notice it.
And I notice it, and then I'll start becoming paranoid about it.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking about it the whole time. Or my breathing, and I become paranoid, and I think about it the whole time. And then, and I just want to change, and I just want to get out of it. And then suddenly the panic. And then the worst thing is, like, the thing that scares me the most is not any of that. It's the panic. Like, I don't know if for anyone that's had a panic attack, it's one of the worst things in the world, where you literally feel like you're dying.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not, but it just feels like you are.
Right, yeah. You definitely aren't, but you are.
But you are. And there's been stages where I've had that constantly.
Yeah.
And it's really hard, but it's usually just like a thought about my breathing or something like that, or anything like that. And and then sometimes it just escalates and I can't stop it. And that's where I have to get up and I have to go somewhere and do something, and then hopefully it calms down. But like by the time I have to get up and walk somewhere, it's fucking high. Like if I'm on a flight, and that's why I don't like flying and stuff like that, because I just don't want to make it. there's a part of me that I just haven't figured out yet that I'm like, I'm pretty good with not caring about what most people think, but I'd never want anyone to think that I'm weak.
For sure.
And that's for sure. I hate that feeling of feeling like I'm vulnerable, and I know it's a problem, but like I don't want to be a nuisance
Because
to
the
anyone.
repercussions.
Yeah, and I don't want to tell people I'm having a panic and I feel weak, and I don't want people not to trust me because they think that way. And I know it's wrong, but that's.
Well, you're probably around a lot of people that would dismiss you if you said that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
so it totally makes sense.
Shut up, you little bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just don't like being in a situation like that. So I tend to just internalize it, which is far worse. And
but that's how the psyche deals with it.
Yeah,
that's how you do. I mean, that's like literally how you deal with it.
Yeah. Push it down, distract myself. Yeah, but it's not the right thing to do.
Well, to give you any comfort, or some comfort, my buddy who found our therapist, and he wouldn't mind me sharing this story. He when he did his psychedelic therapy, he right when the psilocybin hit him. Now, look, the MDMA, you can't feel bad, right? MDMA, you could think of your worst enemy and you'd want to hug them. That's just what that chemical does to you, which allows you to put your guard down, right? And that's why you can go so deep into your subconscious, because of the fear's gone. You're out of that fear center of your brain, shuts it off. And we're all like all day. Everybody's mostly like this from childhood, especially if you had similar backgrounds to how we had. But what happened to him was he did mushrooms when he was 18, and he had a panic attack. And he had just gotten broken up with by a girl. He felt inferior, not good enough, blah, blah, blah. So right when he was in the session, the MDMA is feeling great. Then you take the psilocybins, measured out, and that feeling from the mushrooms comes, which is the same feeling he had when he was 18. And so the panic came. And he got up, he took his blindfold off. He was like, hey, I'm kind of feeling anxiety. And she was like, okay, well, what does it feel like? Well, it feels like the exact same time when I was 18, when I took mushrooms. And I'm just feeling the same way. And she was like, okay, well, what made you anxious when you were 18? He was like, well, I was with this girl, and she had broken up with me, and I just felt so like not good enough. And she was like, okay, why do you feel not good enough? Now, these are basic questions, right? But because you're in your mental state has changed, right? You're able to actually ask yourself. Because like if you were to ask yourself now, well, I mean, I was anxious because, shit was going on. But then you can actually go back and think. And he was like, oh. So he put his blindfold on, he laid back down, and he was 5 years old again. And he was standing outside a candy store or a convenience store or whatever. And his mom used to belittle him, and even his father. She was just that's how she interacted with him. She was a belittling person, right? And he wanted some candy, and she said something, and I don't even think he remembered what she said, but she said something that belittled him so much that he felt that feeling of not being good enough for the first time. And he was holding a metal stick, and she was like, no, we're getting back in the car. And he got back in the car, and he was holding the stick, and he was like, I felt the stick and how cold it was and how hard that metal stick was, metal rod. And I just remember screaming, crying. And he was like, that was the first time he thought I should kill myself. I said, dude, when you were 5? He was like, yes. And he was like, what I did in that moment, I reached down and I hugged the 5-year-old version of myself. I said, it's going to be okay. All you have to do is keep moving forward. Just a little pep talk to his 5-year-old self. And then like all that tension and anxiety released.
Really?
Yeah, dude.
That's fucking amazing.
It's crazy, and it's a hard conversation to have with people that aren't receptive to it, because I grew up in, a fundamentalist church, and very unreceptive to any drug use, right? Or alcohol or smoking. I was very fundamentalist, for good reasons, because in a small town, you start drinking, your life's over. lack of opportunity in a small town. Like my parents were like trying to keep me on the straight and narrow. So I get it. But man, like this stuff is just so transformative, man. And I had my own experiences, you know, with it that changed my life. You know, I didn't realize, you know, what I had something happen to me when I was a kid, and I had never worked through it. And I had so much shame and guilt from it, and I could never let it go. And I would always would think about it, like, nah, just never think about it.
Yeah.
You know, and for the first time, I was able to sit in it and process the whole thing. Why did I do that? Oh, because I was an insecure little boy. Oh, I didn't know any better. Oh, I was just trying to make people happy. Oh, somebody was sad. I was like, oh, I'll make you happy. You know? And I reconnected with that innocence of who I was as a child, because we all are, you know?
Yeah.
And was finally able to let it go.
I need that, bro.
And everybody's got something.
Yeah, for sure.
Because everybody's worst thing that happened to them is the worst thing that could happen to them, you know, because it did, you know? Even if it's, you know, your mom yelling at you one time.
And you feel like the you know, the psilocybin helps you connect to that better. Or
the MDMA allows you to connect. What does the
MDMA feel like just when you use it?
Warm.
Warm.
You're in the warmest blanket you've ever been in. The way I describe and you can do a session of just MDMA. But the MDMA is like sitting in your favorite blanket by the fire, drinking coffee or whatever hot cider you want, and talking hot kombucha, and talking to your best friend.
Really?
That's what it is.
So,
but on another level.
Would be similar to Xanax or
I've never taken that.
Valium?
I've never taken those.
Okay.
Yeah.
They do a similar thing.
Okay.
But probably...
Well,
I've heard... The Xanax and that doesn't make you feel like you want to love other people, but I've heard, a few friends have used Molly.
Right. Yeah. Street name, yeah.
And really do you get a come down from it?
Sometimes people do, but that depends on how clean it is, I think.
Okay.
But I mean, I never did.
You feel like sad afterwards or anything?
I didn't. My buddy has, but he spent his entire life on Adderall.
Okay.
So his receptors are probably pretty jacked from being on Adderall, because MDMA is a serotonin just flood. Flood your system with serotonin, and Adderall does a similar thing to your dopamine system.
Okay, yeah.
So he might have some lingering effects from since 6 years old being on until he's 30. You know what I mean?
For sure. I probably should have been, or at least should have been told I should be on it. I've got a few friends that have messaged me recently and been like, bro, get on it, changed my life, so much better. But I've also had the opposite, like, no, never get medicated.
Right.
So, and I'm always like, I don't really like putting anything in my body. I'm a little bit paranoid about that. That's why.
Same.
Yeah, I think I put in his kombucha.
Yeah. But back to your question about the psilocybin and the MDMA. The psilocybin, the mushroom, allows you to go a little deeper into your subconscious. Because of the default mode network of your brain. The psilocybin allows different parts of your brain to interact.
So what does that feel like when you get on that?
Expansive. Like your mind kind of opens. It feels like pressure is kind of released.
Really?
Yeah. And what I did a couple sessions of just MDMA, which were transformative. Really worked. But it was the MDMA and the psilocybin that really got me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of friends have used like ayahuasca and spoken, but that's a fucking experience.
That's too much, man.
Yeah,
I want to heal. I want to feel good. I want to heal.
I had a friend of mine who suffered from a lot of depression, anxiety, and he told a story. It was actually secondhand story, so it wasn't my friend. It was his friend, but I know him anyway. And he said he saw himself as a clay model. And
is it ayahuasca?
When he was doing ayahuasca.
Okay.
And he saw this model of himself in clay, and in it was a hair. So he reached down. Is he bumping the camera? Yeah. He reached down, and sorry, he didn't reach. He looked in and found a hair, like I have here.
Yes. In
his clay model, and he pulled it out and said he never had anxiety again. Isn't that weird? Never. It's like It's like that hair, and that represented anxiety and depression. It was like a problem with him, So he physically did that.
Literally, yeah.
That's
I hear great stories from it, but then I also hear people shit and vomit themselves, and and I'm just like,
I don't like throwing up.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
I fucking hate that.
I have no desire after what I did. You can do different dosages of the medicines. Sound like a hippie, but I did the whole 5 grams, which is a hero's journey, what they call it. Yeah,
shit.
I did all the MDMA and then all the 5
Did you build
grams.
up to that?
No,
You just smacked it straight.
I was ready. I'd done a lot of prep.
Okay.
And I really wanted to get out of my own way.
What'd you do? You blindfold yourself and fuck.
The prep. Okay, well, it was funny is I learned a lot about myself during prepping for it. I said, okay, I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna get my workouts in. I'm gonna be very disciplined and everything. And then I realized I'm not in control of this situation. So why am I trying to control it? And so that was actually a huge step of progress for me before the session. And so when I got in, I was just so ready. Because here's the thing about that combination of MDMA and psilocybin. It's going to give you what you need. There's just no doubt. Like everybody who does it gets exactly what they need. And a lot of times it's things you didn't know that you needed.
That's so
which is fascinating. That was one of the things for my girlfriend. Obviously for my buddy, and then for me too. I had some moments I was like, oh wow, I didn't know I needed that.
Did she start you off like first session like this, or did you go to her first?
I actually did my first MDMA session with a friend of mine who had been around this world for a while. But when I met her,
wasn't a producer, was he?
No, he wasn't a producer. But when I met her, my buddy had done a session with her, or two sessions with her. And he had done the combo MDMA and psilocybin, and I was like, you know what? I need to do the whole thing. I need to do the whole thing. But that's not for everybody. I think the best combo is all of the MDMA and half of the psilocybin, which is 2.5 grams. One, because of you get yourself out of your default mode network, right? But also for the neuroplastic effects. Right, your brain literally can rewire in a way.
How long does it last?
6-7 hours.
Fuck, it's a lot.
But it's the best 7 hours of your life.
Yeah. What if it's the worst? That's the part that scares me.
So that's the MDMA.
Yeah.
That's why it's not. You can't feel bad on the MDMA.
The MDMA counteracts that.
And so some people will just do mushroom, like psilocybin.
Yeah.
And they'll have some tough, anxiety-ridden experiences.
Yeah.
That's why you do it with the MDMA, because you really want to get the most out of it, right? You don't want to just like be in your anxiety for like 3 hours of it. Yeah. You want to find that anxiety and go right through it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then move on. What's next? Boom. And then you get into this state where you're like, damn, I'm going to think of every relationship because I can learn something from everything, And one of the things for me, dude, was my parents it was tough. It was tough staying married, but they did for us. Retrospect, my mom should have left. Even though I love both of them and they loved each other, they didn't know how to be married. I mean, who does, right? Especially back then. What was Google? It didn't exist. You couldn't learn how to have a better marriage, That's
so funny. What was Google?
You had to buy a book that cost a lot of money back then to learn anything.
Yeah.
Or go to a library. What's that?
Who did that?
Right.
No one.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't learn.
Too busy.
Yeah.
So one of the things with me is like I've never wanted to get married because I've seen so many people, their relationships fall apart when they get married. And I'm like, that's not going to be me. I'm going to make this relationship the best relationship it can be. And if we get married, you're not even going to want to get married because our relationship's so good. And I've kept that promise, right? Because I've really focused on it. But in the session, when I would think of her, she appeared as like this wooden mosaic. You ever seen like the Mother Mary like holding Christ?
Yeah.
Okay. She was holding me.
Little baby.
Yeah. I wasn't the baby though. She was like holding my upper body and my head, and she was like holding me like
a
this.
full-grown man.
Yeah, full-grown man holding.
Miniature, with a full-grown man.
But yeah, so it's like this wooden mosaic, and I was like, it was almost like every time I would like, I'm blindfolded, obviously, but like when I would like look to the right, she was there, like holding me, like comforting me. And the feeling that I had, it's not, yes, you see things, right? But it's the feeling that you connect with that image that changes things. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I have. And I started looking at her closer, and I saw all these little square tiles, right, that made up the mosaic. You know what a mosaic is, right? Yeah. So all these little squares that make this image. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, there are so many new ways to admire her that I've not been aware of. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing, but I can't keep looking at that. Like, wonder why that one ex-girlfriend of mine and I never worked out. I'm like, yeah, that would have never worked out. And then boom, that image would just pop back up. And I'm like, oh my God, like I am so grateful. Like I am so blessed to have this. And I couldn't allow myself to see it before. Because I was like, no, make the relationship work, stay focused on the little things or, whatever. Don't get distracted by marriage or, the silly stuff that everybody, because when you're younger, people get married. Oh, you should get married. And you're like, your fucking marriage is it's a disgrace to marriage, right? I'm being harsh, but a lot of people do it and they don't know what they're doing. I just didn't want to be that. Dude, after my session, I was like, I'm okay getting married. Thought I'd never say that.
That's so cool.
And then I come out of the session, I'm like, I'm okay with having a kid.
Wow.
I'll make it work.
Wow. Before you didn't want one?
No. Because I thought if I don't get to where I want to get, I can't have a kid.
Yeah.
You get that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah.
But I know me, and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I connected with that, and I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. But until that, dude, I came home, I flew home, and I'm like, hey, let's go get lunch. And I'm like, so I'm okay with getting married. She's like, thank God! 8 years, I knew it. I'd wear them out.
It's paid off.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
that was the whole. You didn't know that was the therapist's whole thing.
Yeah.
She's a marriage therapist,
right? Exactly. Yeah, Courtney's like sliding her a couple hundred.
You flew to her? She over in like Texas or something?
She's in another state.
Yeah,
on the East Coast. Yeah,
nice.
But I would never do a session with anybody else.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where is it? Because I'm actually going to the East Coast. Which state is it?
Maryland.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was going that way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We'll definitely talk.
There, and I wanted to see New York.
Okay.
So I have to ask her if she's willing to see
an Aussie
ex-Marvel fan.
Well, dude, this has been fun. I don't want to keep you any longer, but this is a blast, man. I hate that we haven't done this more.
I know.
I take a lot of blame for that, but
it's your fault. Yeah.
I know. I appreciate it.
No.
This is fun, dude.
Yeah,
thank
awesome.
you. It was good seeing you again.
Likewise.